Novus, the new voice. Vox Novus, the new dimension. Vox Novus, thought and movement leaders who will share from their experience and offer tools to help us navigate our rapidly changing world. My name is Victor Furman. Welcome to Vox Novus, the new voice. How may awakening prana lead to regenerative self-transformation? My guest this week on Vox Novus, Annie B. Bond, has lived a modern-day hero's journey through tragedy and trial to courage, revelation, and renewal. Known as the godmother of green, Annie is the author of 5 award-winning best-selling books on healthy living and numerous newsletters, blogs, and articles in outlets such as Martha Stewart Living and the Huffington Post. Over the last 2 decades, her solutions have helped millions of people to care for themselves and the planet simply, naturally, and effectively. Her website is awakeningprana.com, and she joins me this week to share her path and latest book, Awakening Prana, 9 Steps to Regenerative Self-Transformation. Please join me in welcoming to Vox Novus Annie Bond. Welcome, Annie.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for joining us and sharing your wisdom and your experience. Annie, please share with us your path and the events that led you on your personal healing journey.
Well, some of you may have heard about a shaman's death, and I certainly had a shaman's death. I was 7 years old in 1980, and I was working in a restaurant, and there was a gas leak, and it sent 80 people to the hospital, including me. And I had what they termed as permanent central nervous system damage, and ended up in the hospital for 3 months. And so everything I knew about who I was completely tipped over and almost took me out. And I ended up, fortunately, finding one of the first environmental medicine doctors in the world at the time. And I was diagnosed with really multiple chemical sensitivity because I had been damaged, my central nervous system was damaged, and I couldn't tolerate chemicals. I was literally the bubble case. And so I it was really hard. I moved 10 times in 4 years and finally found a healthy home, got well enough to have my daughter, thankfully, gratefully. And then I ended up having a very prestigious career in writing green living books. I was a best-selling author of a number of books on green living. And because I had to learn how to live without chemicals, and so I was just sort of ahead of the curve in that. My first book was Clean and Green, and it was the first time those 2 words were ever put together. But people who are as sick as I was tend to really push the envelope. And I did, because Western medicine wasn't helping me particularly. And I ended up, outside of isolating myself from chemicals, I still was pretty vulnerable. And so I ended up experimenting with some energy work, and I started feeling a little better, and I did more. I became a Reiki master. I did sort of more extensive training and did a lot of work with Kundalini, and I found just remarkable benefits. And so I did a lot of training. I kept my day job, and by around 2012, 2013, I remember talking to Bardo Tunku Rinpoche, a Tibetan Buddhist Rinpoche who lived near me, and asked him about his thoughts about the state of our environment. And he said, it's just a reflection of our consciousness, and that has such a deep impact. And so my work is really, the first part of my career has been healing the outer world, and the second part of my career has been healing the inner world. And that really brings me to where I am today, I guess, is trying to do both.
You've been called the godmother of green. Who gave you this lovely title, and what does it mean to you?
I was called the godmother of green by her last name is Trespicio. She was an editor at Martha Stewart. And I remember that actually in a radio show. And it was, I mean, I really was one of the seminal, first people that really talked about non-toxic living. And so I was, in fact, considered the top and green living person in the country by Body and Soul magazine back in the day, So it wasn't prescient on my part. I just, because of my poisoning, I really learned how to live this way, and that's why.
How did you recognize your calling as an energy healer?
Well, this it's an interesting story that for me anyway. It's actually the seminal evolution of in 2014. I was awakened on the Hunter moon, full moon, and in the middle of the night, and I was given a healing that is absolutely the most profound healing I'd ever had. And I've had enough healings. I knew I was having a healing. And I ended up eventually going back to sleep, but it was so tender and so insightful and so compassionate and kind towards me and who I was that I woke up the next morning and I thought to myself, oh my gosh, that must have been the Divine Mother. I don't know what else it could have been. And this is me, a person who's never been to church. I didn't even hardly know what the Divine Mother was. But that was sort of the feeling I had about it. And I went underground with that for the next few months, just trying to process what a profound event that was for me. And I ended up having a healing trade with a friend of mine who's a really good healer, and I thought, gosh, I wonder if what happened I could set up what happened to me happened to her. And I asked for it because I find more and more that you have to ask, ask spirit for this. And this ball of light about 6 feet off the table was my friend in all her best attributes, all the wisdom about her. And I realized, oh my gosh, it was my soul that visited me and gave me a healing that night. And it was the soul that was going to give this woman a healing. And I asked her soul to give her a healing, and it was just knocked her socks off. The wisdom about it was so profound. And I just ended up giving a few other healings of asking the soul to give the healing, and I just never looked back because there are a couple things about it. One is I wasn't the doer anymore, and I never felt comfortable being the doer, even as well trained as I was. This is totally giving over to spirit to bring the healing, and so that was that was really good. And it's just that the healings were so deep, and I ended up it was a huge word of mouth where one healing led to the next, and I became a full-time healer.
You had mentioned Reiki earlier. What are the modalities that you employ in your healing practice?
Well, at this point, it's really an original practice. I, as I say, I'm well trained, and so did a lot of sound healing and all these various things. But as I started, this was really an original healing, the Divine Mother modality. I called it the Divine Mother modality at that time because I was calling the soul the Divine Mother, and a person's Divine Mother, that is. And since then, I've given thousands of healings, and it's evolved by I'm very clairvoyant. I'm just very gifted in that way. So I can see how energy moves in a person. And when I see that, and that's been my teacher. So I've been learning, the teacher has been my experience, and I've added more things in because they've come in organically.
Please describe what a sound healing session is like.
A sound healing session is very it's very somatic, and I have singing bowls that have handles, and so you could hold them over the table. I do much more sound healing in person than I do on Zoom, but you tune in with which I do shamanic sound healing, and so I can tune into where there's an energy that needs something. I then try to figure out what's the sort of shamanic percussion instrument that would be helpful. Would it be a singing bowl? Would it be a feather even? Would it be clapping or drum? What would be useful, or would it be voice? And the voice can transmit energy like no other. And so I will often do a shamanic sound healing with a person where I pick up the low vibration energy with my voice, and my voice transmutes it. And so the end of that sound healing with the voice is a much higher vibration, and it's really, really deep. I also use tuning forks sometimes, and it's extremely intuitive from the healer's perspective.
One of the recurring themes in my life, especially since my late 40s, when much of my spiritual path reopened, has been the gift of synchronicity, these messages and these opportunities showing up. And I've had three choices. I could either say, not right now. I could say, yes, but not right now. Or I could say yes with a capital Y. And every time I said yes with a capital Y, the next one would come and the next one. Have you had that experience also? It sounds like it.
I have, definitely. I like the way you are looking at it, though. Yes, with a capital Y. I think that maybe the way I have rephrased it for myself is the synchronicities. I love those, but then also asking for evidence so that I'm actually having a spiritual experience about something, and then suddenly things will start happening in my life that are synchronistic to what I was what I was asking for healing around, or something like that. So the synchronistic is just, my soul, higher self, spirit bringing things to me in a synchronistic way, which is always the key is just making sure you pay attention, right? And then the other is my asking for certain things to happen, and that's also synchronistic in a different kind of way, but that's more of an evidence-based. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I agree with you 100%. That's the way it's been for me also. Before we discuss your latest book, Awakening Prana, 9 Steps to Regenerative Self-Transformation, please tell us about your previous books and what you offer readers.
Well, my previous books were all on green living, and they are all very, very practical books on how to live in a non-toxic way. So if you have to clean the bathtub, how do you do it without giving yourself a headache and all that kind of thing? And so it's really important. Like, for example, how do you get rid of ticks without chemicals, or that kind of thing? It's learning how to navigate our world in a way that is healthier for you. I read a wonderful book that I love so much called The Hathor Material, and it was Tom Kenyon, sound healer, channeling in the Hathors, which are these huge beings. So I work with the Hathors also, and I did for Awakening Prana. And they always talk that one of the most important corners of our well-being is to have a clean environment. And so I feel like, even though I'm coming into the spiritual angle now, having a clean environment and not having your physical body fighting an overload of chemicals is a very important part of your ability to be in flow. And so, my books are out of print now, but I'm thinking of combining them all and putting a book out called Greenify Everything, and the new year, which I think I'm going to do. My sort of bit, it's all really good, evergreen content. And so, I worked very, very hard in coming up with really good content. So that's it's sort of that's my past career, but I'm going to bring the book compile it to bring it into fruition. So
Let me ask you for one green solution. I know in my neighborhood here in Queens, New York, a lot of people are dealing with black mold. What do you have that's green for black mold?
Well, black mold, well, that's a little complicated because I have my mold, the things I do for mold, but I can't say that it's professionally mitigated. I haven't had it tested, defined, but one of the best things I know of for mold is tea tree oil. It kills all sorts of fungus, all stage, and so to make a spray bottle of like a teaspoon of tea tree oil and a cup of water or so in a spray bottle. Like I remember a friend of mine gave me a desk that had been in their garage or something. It was very musty. And I sprayed it with tea tree oil and I didn't rinse it. And it was just astonishing how in a day, the musty smell was completely gone.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think you definitely should put all of your books together next year and put them together and publish them again, because I think our world needs all of this green work and this green cleaning. Personally, my wife is allergic to everything. So we have to be super green in our house. And I'm glad you shared that with us. Thank you.
No, thank you for the encouragement. I will do that because I hate having everybody having to reinvent the wheel when it's already done. So,
Absolutely. What inspired your latest book, Awakening Prana: 9 Steps to Regenerative Self-Transformation?
well, the inspiration for it is my genuine fascination with the energy body. I was trained as a healer to work with the chakras, and it was very static. And it was, I mean, not that the chakras themselves are static, but it missed what I've come to understand is the flow of the entire energy body. And so this is, to me, an absolute obsession is an extreme word, but and I wouldn't say obsession, extremely interested. And I've been eagle-eyed about the energy body. And I think, again, it comes back to my poisoning as I've wanted to heal the flow of energy in my physical body. And how do I do that to fully recover from a very severe injury that I had? And so about oh gosh, 20 years ago, I found a stone in my driveway, and it looked like the old man on the mountain. For those of you that are old enough, you would remember reading about maybe the old man on the mountain that was in New Hampshire. And it was a picture, I mean, it was an image naturally carved into the mountain that looked a very Native American looking man. It since has disintegrated, but it had this, so the stone in my driveway had eyes and a mouth and a nose. And I just am a creative type, and I propped the book up next to my computer, and I started looking in the eyes of this stone, and I started typing. And would just type fast, and I would type and type and type. I mean, I type really fast. So I over the years, I started calling these the Stoneman Diaries. And over the years, I also started realizing, oh my goodness, I'm learning so much wisdom I started realizing I was really channeling in a being. And I'm learning, and he is teaching me about the energy body. And so the Awakening Prana is all the teachings that came from Stoneman. They are from the Stoneman Diaries. My understanding, the wisdom about the energy body coming from Stoneman is just absolutely breathtaking. And so I wanted to compile it in a way that I could present to people.
Many of our listeners are aware of the meaning of the word prana, but for the few who do not know, please share what this Sanskrit word means and how it applies to this work.
Well, it's really about life force energy. So the work, like connecting to your own life force energy, is the key of this book of Awakening Prana. And I have 9 steps of working with your energy body that includes connecting to your higher self, for example, and includes connecting to the sacred elements, and that actually connects you so that you have much more access to your life force energy.
And specifically, prana, the word prana, I know it to mean the breath.
Yeah, I think you can also find it, and I'm not using this in that way. I'm not saying it's the breath, even though it is the breath also, of course. It's your life force energy that comes from source. So that's like, it is, I mean, it is breath, right? A person dies and they stop breathing and it's gone. I just don't quite identify it that way, because this is not a practice for breath work.
Understood. In Awakening Prana, you say that a matrix of light holds the key to healing. Please elaborate on this concept and how it connects to our well-being.
Yeah, we have what I call the central axis. It's a a line of energy that comes down through us. It comes into the top of our head and down out of the perineum, and it carries our perfect blueprint of who we are. It carries our DNA. It carries the quantum self of our perfection. It carries source energy. And so that is ultimately the 9 steps get us to the point where we can have the flow of that energy come out to where we need it. And there's a big premise about from Stoneman, who is a Hathor, one of the big sound healer Hathor beings, that and it's through many different sort of more ancient texts about something called the axiotonal grids, which are the way we as humans connect to the light of source. And it's been depleted in our culture because it requires to connect to this energy. Our energy body requires that we connect to this bioelectric system of who we are, that it requires a certain amount of yin energy and it requires a certain amount of yang energy. And it's like a car. So if you imagine a car battery that has the positive and the negative charges, the yin and the yang are the equivalent of the negative and positive charges. And when we have enough of those in equal balance, our whole energy body starts moving, and it enables us to really connect to this life force energy and coming through that central axis. And it's a very, very powerful energy. But what the research really shows that the more and more disconnected we have become to the planet, the more and more disconnected we are from Mother Earth, to that incredible feminine energy. And so we're not charging. Our energy bodies aren't charging properly, and we need to bring in more of that yin energy in order for us this bioelectric system of who we are to connect.
And we'll discuss more about those issues in our next segment. My guest is Annie Bond. Her book, Awakening Prana, 9 Steps to Regenerative Self-Transformation. Annie, please share with our listeners where they can get your books and find out more about you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. My website is awakeningprana.com. And the book Awakening Prana is available in any bookstore, and it's available on Kindle on Amazon. And my Green Living books, as I said, are out of print. If you look up though on Amazon, you still can get, some of them are available. My married name at the time when I wrote some of those books was Berthold Bond, which is BERTHOLD-BOND. But if you look for Annie B. Bond, as B is the middle name, on Amazon, all of those books should come up.
And we'll be back with more of Annie after these words on the Om Times Radio Network.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. Om Times Radio. IOM FM. Om Times Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization. Their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Om Times, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
So I'm a cat, and I just moved in with this new human, and she's got this little toy she's always playing with, all day long. Tap, 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 bloop, bloop. She can't put it down. There it is. Oh, and get this. She even talks to it. Last week, she asked it for Chinese, and guess what? Egg rolls showed up. Like magic. Humans have cool toys.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
The impact of a meal goes well beyond feeding our bodies. Because when people don't have to worry about where their next meal is coming from, they can truly thrive. Like Marta.
And now we'll hear from our class valedictorian, who with our hard work never ceases to amaze us. Please welcome Marta Moreno.
And Alex.
Hey, Alex, how did the interview go?
I did it! I got the job! I can't believe it!
I knew it. Let's meet up later to celebrate.
And Diego.
Mom! I got first place at the science fair with my volcano project.
That's amazing, sweetie. Congratulations.
Because when people are fed, futures are nourished, and everyone deserves to live a full life. Join the movement to end hunger at feedingamerica.org/actnow. feedingamerica.org/actnow. A public service announcement brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Most people out here think that taking care of one another is important. And most people would step up for a neighbor going through a tough time. Most people around here help out friends and family when they need it. But the funny thing is, most of us won't look for help when we need it. Talk to someone if you're struggling with mental health, because most people out here really care. Find more information at loveyourmindtoday.org. That's loveyourmindtoday.org. Brought to you by the Huntsman Mental Health Institute and the Ad Council.
Back on Vox Novus, my guest this week, Annie Bond. We're talking about her book, Awakening Prana, 9 Steps to Regenerative Self-Transformation. Annie, many people experience fatigue and a lack of vitality. Does Awakening Prana explain why this happens and how reconnecting to this matrix can help?
This is exactly right, because we are not functioning on all cylinders in our lives anymore, because this, as I was mentioning earlier, this bioelectric charge that we need of the yin and the yang and the negative and positive voltages it has to connect. And if we're depleted, we're just not, our energy body isn't in flow. And so we are tired and exhausted. And as you can, and in the 9 steps in the book, it walks you through all the steps to get the whole system charged so that you then can, as you imagine this as a car, like drive without any hindrance and be in much better flow. It's the other thing about it is that source energy can really heal. Well, it's sort of a fountain of youth almost, that connecting to that kind of energy. And so as you enable the energy to come into your system, you end up being able to push away that low vibration density that is part of that drags you down, and our suffering and all of that is, part of our being human. But we don't have to have that low vibration density holding us back from being in full vitality.
Let's talk a little bit more about bioelectrical capacity. Can you sort of define it for us and how it affects our health and our connection to the universe?
Yeah, I think I just have to come back to the idea of the car battery, that if you don't have one of the negative or the positive batteries, enough of it, and an equal balance, you're not going to get that car started, or it may sputter along, but it's not going to be in full flow. And so there are what I call 3 major ways that we can rebalance our yin and yang. And in the physical body, it's the yin feminine, the yang masculine. And there are 3 major ways that I work with people to, in the book, it helps a person learn to recharge these batteries. One is by connecting to Mother Earth and Father Sun and asking these 2 energies to come into equal balance. Many women are actually more deficient in the Father Sun than they are Mother Earth. More men often are more deficient in Mother Earth and Father Sun, but these are very primary yin and yang energies that we need in order to function well on the planet. They bring us into polarity. Then on a soul level, we have our soul mother and our soul father, the feminine side of our soul, the masculine side of our soul. This is another energy that is very, very important to get balanced. And it's very often imbalanced because we pattern ourselves after our parents of origin, our family of origin. And this is nothing negative about our parents, but we're all born to unhealed mothers and unhealed fathers, and we all become unhealed children. And so the part of my healing practice is that we do that the healed mother can come bring healing to the healed mother in our soul is not the same as our birth mother. And once we start working with that energy, we can invite in that healed mother energy to supersede where we may be depleted, and the same with the father energy. So a good example of that was a client of mine who'd beaten a lot by his birth father. And so his soul father had a huge role for his healing to bring in enough masculine energy from his soul to compensate for where he never got enough of the male energy. So that's the second batch of coming into balances with a soul mother and soul father, and for each of us individually. And then the third way is to work with the currents of the Divine Mother and the currents of the Divine Father. So Source has the mother, father, male, female side to it, and we ask the currents of the Divine Mother to come into balance with the currents of the Divine Father. And again, the balance is so important, having enough of the yin and enough of the yang, and having them in equal balance.
I remember in the 1990s, at times when I felt out of balance, I would walk out in the grass without shoes, barefoot, and feel myself connected to Mother Earth.
Yeah.
And then also look up into the sky and feel myself connecting to the sun. And I felt myself in balance between Mother Earth and Father Sky or Father Sun. And it was such a healing experience for me. It would revitalize me, and it would put me back on a positive path. Is that one of the exercises you recommend?
Absolutely. That's just absolutely spot on. So one of the things I do before I give any healing is I send love and gratitude to the heart of the earth, and I ask Mother Earth to send her beautiful energy up to our Earth Star chakra, and the energy goes where it needs to go. Send love and gratitude to the heart of the sun, ask Father Sun to come down to our Soul Star chakra, and the energy goes wherever it needs to go. That is absolutely key. I try to do something along those lines every day.
Awakening Prana promises to help people reclaim their power. What kind of power are we talking about here, and how does the program achieve this?
Well, I think it's important to look at power in this instance as the ability to, the title of the book is regenerative, right? It's regenerative self-transformation, that the ability to connect to that life force energy that is our true life force energy. It gives us the power to do that, to reach that power, I guess is maybe the way to put it, that the power of our true quantum self's perfect blueprint of who we are can come through. We're set it up so that can come through to us to bring healing to different parts of ourselves.
Can you share some examples of how people have used Awakening Prana to address specific health challenges or improve their overall well-being?
Let me give you an example of the overall well-being. And yes, I can, a lot of help for people with high blood pressure, for example. But one of my favorite stories that was so vivid was I lead retreats in Sedona, and once I have for this will be my third year, and and we go to the yin and the yang vortexes because I teach the Awakening Prana way, these 9 steps when I'm there. And we have the inner vortex of trying to come into the yin and the yang balance, but then we sort of parallel that with coming to the yin energies in the Kachina woman vortex, for example, in Sedona. And also then the masculine vortex energy, which would in that case is the Courthouse Butte vortex. And there was a woman, she's in her early 70s, and she completely transformed when she was at the Courthouse Butte. She was very depleted, it turns out, in enough healed male energy. And for her to experience male energy in herself for the first time transformed her life. It just absolutely transformed her life. She's been a different person ever since. And, yang energy is really it's important, like the guy I was telling you about who had been beaten by his father. He was a beautiful furniture maker. He was very creative, and that was very yin. But he could not bring his work to market. And once he had enough male energy, yang energy, superseding that injured part of himself, he was able to go to crafts fairs and just go, make a very successful career for himself, because you need that kind of yang energy to jump forward and go out, and so this woman had been in a similar kind of way, in the sense that she was very creative and very, very yin, but she was not able to push herself out into the world in a way that was authoritative about herself. And so that changed for her. In terms of physical health things, there are a lot of different ways. Like, one of the things I have people do when they're working with these 9 steps, we have a number of different ways of times where we meditate on different things, is to ask the intention for a healing of an issue. So, for example, to ask the intention of healing the high blood pressure, or intention of healing a hearing problem, or various different things. And so having the intention really helps. But with what the process does is it opens up the door to removing the energetic obstacles to the clearing, whatever it was that caused the imbalance to begin with, gets cleared out. And then that source energy, that life force energy, can go directly to that area and bring the healing.
How long does it typically take for people to start feeling the positive effects of reconnecting to the matrix of light through awakening prana?
Well, that's a good question. I think people can feel great just from, I do a lot of sound healing or original sound healing. That's all on my site, by the way, like self-love. There's a beautiful self-love healing. 7 Keys to Awakening Prana is another one of the meditations, sound healing meditations on the site. And they're they're in the book, they're QR codes to all of these. And you could just feel so much better. Like the 7 Keys to Awakening Prana, I used to listen to that every night before I went to bed, because it would and I wake up in the morning and want to listen to it. It was extremely powerful in making me feel so much more aligned. Then there is the going, really studying the 9 steps and making a process of working with it. Like, I have a 7-minute meditation that gets you through all the 9 steps. And people get really transformed doing that all the time. Like one woman I know who's actually very famous, she does it every single morning. Just that's it, 7 minutes does it, and her spiritual growth has shot up like a rocket ship. I've just observed it, and I know it has something to do with this also. And part of the 7 minutes is connecting to the heart of the earth and connecting to the heart of the sun.
Beautiful, beautiful. You had mentioned the Awakening Prana retreats that you hold in Sedona. Your next one is coming this February. What may participants look forward to?
Well, it's really such an incredible community building up of us also exploring the yin and the yang energies in the earth, right, with the vortexes. And I work very hard to make the book Awakening Prana very, very experiential. So we have, maybe 20 hours of teaching that I do. But it's like going walks to connect to the elements, earth, fire, water, air, and ether, and experiencing sound healing around these 9 steps. And the 9 steps I've spent a lot of time with the 9 steps, so that it's a complete practice. In yoga, they talk about kriyas, like I'm going to do a special yoga kriya. This is like a kriya. I've made it a 5-day set of working very hard to make it a fully coherent practice that you could do for the rest of your life. And it'll sustain you through thick or thin, really. I mean, it's a real, it connects you to the fountain of youth. It really does, because that is your true quantum perfect self, right?
Absolutely. Sedona is one of my favorite places on the earth. I've been
Oh,
there several
nice.
times. It's so beautiful. How can our listeners find out more about the retreat?
Awakeningprana.com will have go to the events tab. There's also at the top of the homepage, there's a link directly to it. And so I'd love to, please don't hesitate to send any questions or anything else. We found a great place, and it has, lots and lots of trails. There are 5 labyrinths on the property. There are lots of vortexes, an organic farm that provides all the organic food. It's just wonderful.
And please also tell us about your Greenify Everything app.
Well, the Greenify Everything app just hit the dust because the company that just went out of business. So that's why I'm going to put everything that was in the app into a book, and it'll be a Greenify Everything book, probably by next summer, I would hope.
Wonderful. I'm sorry, I didn't realize that the,
No, that's
the
all right.
app had bit the dust.
I'll update.
Absolutely. Need to update the website on that. My guest is Annie Bond. Her book is entitled Awakening Prana, 9 Steps to Regenerative Self-Transformation. We'll be back with more of Annie after these words on the Om Times Radio Network.
Humanity Healing International is a small nonprofit with a big dream. Since 2007, HHI has been working tirelessly to bring help to communities with little or no hope. Our projects are not broad mandates, nor are they overnight solutions, but they bring the reassurance that no one is alone and that someone cares. To learn more, please visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Imagine yourself being transported to India, to the banks of the Ganga and an ashram in Rishikesh. Visualize that you are welcome to satsang with an American sannyasi who shares the wisdom of her guru. Your visualization has manifested. Join Sattvi Bhagawati Saraswati for inspiration and transformation every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on Om Times Radio.
More than 24 million Americans have an autoimmune disorder, and that number continues to grow. I'm Sharon Saylor, and I'm one of those 24 million. To put that number in perspective, cancer affects about 9 million and heart disease up to 22 million. That's why I've brought together top experts and those thriving regardless of their diagnosis to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information. Join me, Sharon Saylor, Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio to find out how to live your life uninterrupted.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Back on Vox Novus, my guest this week is Annie Bond. Her book, Awakening Prana, 9 Steps to Regenerative Self-Transformation. Annie, can you explain how Awakening Prana achieves positive results by incorporating ancient wisdom and respected contemporary practices that have shown to be effective, such as visualization?
Yeah, that's, it's a very, very deep connection to the planet and to the elements, earth, fire, water, air, and ether have been a mainstay of many spiritual practices forever. And I think the modern world, we will often forget it. We forget it, especially as we get more and more digital. We're less and less being outdoors and in nature, and so it's a fundamental, the connecting to nature and specifically the elements, earth and fire and water and air and ether, is a very, very seminal part of the entire process. It's the step one, actually, is learning how to connect to the planet. And I think that the modern awareness of things like, for example, coming into heart coherence, we have a lot of to give a lot of credit to the Heart Math Institute, for example, and a lot of healers that talk about coming into heart coherence, which is dropping into your heart chakra and tuning into a feeling of gratitude for creation. And there's a resonance that happens in your heart chakra when you do that kind of thing. And my understanding would be that isn't like that's new, but that we are, because certainly, especially back in the day, the less would be less in one's head and more in nature and more in one's heart to begin with. But being conscious of being in heart coherence as part of a step for this is I think a new way of looking at these kinds of works, and so I think that's very important. And also, like I always say before these meditations, is to ask the intention for what it is you want the healing to be, and that becomes very important.
Tell us a little more about visualization practice.
I'm very clairvoyant, so I always visualize as I'm doing any of these things. So if I'm sending love and gratitude to the heart of the earth, I sort of see it. I see the energy go down, or I send love and gratitude to the heart of the sun and I see it go down. And I'm mindful of the fact that a lot of people aren't as clairvoyant as I am, of course. And so, but they may be very claircognizant. They may know things. They may feel things. They may see things. Hear things. And so the ability to feel to see is something that really can be trained. And I think visualizing guided meditations are really, really helpful to train clairvoyance. And I really recommend it because you can learn a lot. Like, you can ask your higher self to give you a symbol of something, and that really helps you manifest. But you need to be able to see it, right? It's in your mind's eye. Like, you ask your higher self, please send me a symbol around something it is you want to manifest. And I once did that I wanted to sell my violin because I had a slight tremor because of my injury, and I had been a very good violinist, and I really couldn't play well anymore. And so I asked that, and my higher self gave me the image of a treble clef. And anytime I thought about wanting to sell my violin, I just get the treble clef in my mind. But I got a clear image of a treble clef by asking my higher self to send me something. And so I just recommend people train their clairvoyance if they're not all naturally clairvoyant themselves.
Chronic pain and health issues can be debilitating. How does Awakening Prana address these challenges and promote natural healing from within?
Well, it's the same process of once you have, going back to the car analogy, once you have the engine working, then the entire system flows, and highly healing energy flows to the areas where there is the pain or the dis-ease. And so it's getting the system working that is incredibly important. And then, a lot of different health issues just simply fall away.
Wonderful. Feeling lost, depressed, and unfulfilled is a common experience. What steps does Awakening Prana offer to help people discover their true purpose and their passions?
Well, one of the important pieces, and is this actually step 2 in the 9 steps to Awakening Prana, is to connect, learning how to build a relationship with your higher self. And that is the part of you that will be able to guide you to help bring healing around some inner conflict that may be causing the depression, and help guide, really bring synchronicities by asking, synchronicities that you might find the right doctor or the chiropractor or something like that. And I think one of the things I've learned a lot about in my personal growth when it comes to my spiritual path has been making this relationship, connecting to my higher self as a relationship, and then asking my higher self to bring healing around different issues. And this is and sort of opening to being guided by your soul and higher self versus your personality is just a game changer. And the book really helps you learn how to do that.
It's interesting when you talk about true purpose and passions. Many years ago, when I was in industry, I used to teach salespeople. And one of the things that I would teach them is to ask, what does the customer really want? And so the example I would give, a very simple example, a customer comes in and wants to buy a drill bit. What do they really want? And people would say, well, they want a drill bit. I said, no, but what do they really want? And the answer is they want to make a hole. And then the question becomes, in addition to the drill bit, what else can they use to make that hole? What are the supplies that they need? Do they need safety gear? Do they need lubricants? Whatever it might be. And I extended that to people that I would used to meet in colleges. We used to bring in interns from colleges. And one of the things that I would sit with an intern and ask is, what do you really want to do? What is it that you aspire to do? And you'd be shocked at how many people never said they never had anyone approach them before. People would say, you should go for this, or you should go for that, or whatever the degree might be. But no one ever sat down with them and listened to them and said, what do you really want to do? And I think that's about connecting with the higher self, isn't it?
It totally is. And then, right, and the more you start feeling you're on that path, you put one foot forward and, you become your own lighthouse, as it were, and shining the light of what the next step and the next step. And it's, you do get some breadcrumbs. It's not necessarily the straightforward, but it's, I just don't know how to live life without this. And most people sort of have gotten sort of insight about things for them or what feels good but their personality may just override it all the time. So paying attention to what is really true and authentic so your personality doesn't override it, very, very helpful for making more authentically correct choices for yourself.
In today's world, stress can take a toll. We see it every day. How does Awakening Prana help people connect with a deeper sense of peace and well-being beyond the physical body?
Once you're in the flow of your energy body, you are in flow and you have a feeling of purpose and you have a feeling of being able to mitigate causes of stress. And you have a ability to come into alignment with where you are. I think coming back into the story about coming into heart coherence is really important. Stress, everybody knows what it's like to be in one's head and hamster wheeling and the mind just running and running. That's a great indicator you're ungrounded. Getting grounded, dropping into your heart chakra. I mean, one way to ground is by asking Mother Earth to help you anchor you down. Find ways that work for you to get grounded, because that's one of the best ways to get out of stress is to get grounded. And besides just being grounded, to be in heart coherence. And then you're not in your head so much. It's takes some time to experience this, but once you learn about what it's like to not be in your head, you just never look back.
What would you like readers to take away from Awakening Prana?
I think just there's so much hope for regeneration, for rejuvenation, for renew oneself, to leave suffering behind and have a fulfilled life with a lot of vibrancy and that's really, I mean, it's astonishing what can happen for your person.
Absolutely. My guest, Annie Bond, her book, Awakening Prana, 9 Steps to Regenerative Self-Transformation. Annie, one more time, please share with our listeners where they can get your book and find out more about you and your amazing work.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor and privilege to be here. My website's awakeningprana.com, Prana.com. My book, Awakening Prana, is available in any bookstores. You probably have to order it there. But it's certainly on Amazon and the Kindle versions on Amazon. And then on my website, I've got, make sure you pay attention to the sound healing. I've got a lot of free sound healing, a lot of free meditations there. And then so there are a lot of resources on that website.
And one more time, talk about the Awakening Prana Retreat that's coming up in Sedona this February.
Yeah, it's going to be 5 full days at a wonderful venue that I'll be teaching in a very experiential way how to connect to who you really are and to get your energy body in full flow so that you come into the full radiance of who you really are. And it's always a very profound community get together. We'll have fire pits. There are labyrinths. We're going to go to vortexes and just have a really miraculous time of letting old suffering go and old density leave, so that we can really come into harmony and resonance and alignment with ourselves, which really then ultimately brings us into transformation.
And as I shared with Annie offline before we resumed the interview, Sedona is one of my favorite places in the world. Every time I've been there, I've had magical experiences. And if anyone can go on this wonderful retreat with Annie, please do. You will have absolute joy and transforming life situations when you go. Annie, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your wisdom and all of your learning.
Oh, thank you so much, Victor. And thanks for the plug for Sedona. It'll be wonderful.
And thank you for joining us on Vox Novus. I'm Victor, the Voice Furman. Have a wonderful week.